Here's a guide to writing simple, compound and complex sentences. First of all, let's start with a simple sentence that has to make sense by itself. We need a capital letter at the beginning and we need a full stop, question mark or exclamation mark at the end. Every sentence has to have a verb. Here's ours. We have sat. There are two nouns in this sentence. This one, the cat, is the most important one. We call it the subject noun because it's the one that actually does the verb. The other noun, mat, is called the object. It's the one that is having the verb done to it. Moving on to compound sentences, here we're sticking together two sentences that make sense by themselves. The cat sat on the mat. It was extremely tired. Here I'm going to put because to link those two sentences together. So this is a connective. I don't need my full stop anymore, and I can change the capital I to a lowercase. There is no need for a comma. We don't need a comma. So the sentence now says, the cat sat on the mat because it was extremely tired. No need for a breath, no need for a comma. Here are two other examples. The cat sat on the mat. Its owner came home. I'm going to insert until as my connective. Again, I can get rid of my capital I and replace it with a lowercase and get rid of my full stop. So the sentence now reads, the cat sat on the mat until its owner came home. No need for a breath, no need for a comma. The second example, the cat sat on the mat. The dog was barking at it. In here I'm going to insert even though. Another connective. I don't need my capital anymore. Here's a lowercase t. And then cross off my full stop. The sentence now reads, the cat sat on the mat even though the dog was barking at it. No need for a comma. Next we move on to complex sentences, which is where you add a clause to a sentence that already makes sense by itself. The clause is not a complete sentence. It doesn't make sense by itself, but it does make the sentence sound better. The easiest way to do this is to plonk one of these clauses on the end of a sentence. Try starting the clause with an ing verb. The cat sat on the mat, washing its paws. Notice the ing verb and also notice the comma, which indicates that you need to take a breath. The cat sat on the mat, washing its paws. A slightly harder one is when you plonk a clause at the beginning of a sentence or at the start. Again, try starting the clause with an ing verb. Looking forward to a peaceful afternoon, the cat sat on the mat. So here's our ing opener, and there's our comma to say we need to take a breath. The trickiest ones are where you plonk a clause in the middle. You place it after the subject. Try starting it with who for a person or an animal, or which for an object which isn't alive. The cat, who was becoming extremely irritated by the dog, sat on the mat. Here's our who, starting our clause, and then notice we've got a comma afterwards and a comma before. For all of these clause sentences, you should be able to take the clause out and the sentence will return to what it was originally and will make sense. This one, for example, would say, the cat sat on the mat. Now let's try one more. This time we're going to improve the vocab on the simple sentence first of all, because the frog sat on the log is pretty basic. So here I've added a couple of adjectives, ferocious and dilapidated. I've improved the verb to become perched, and I've added an adverb, precariously. The sentence now says the ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. Okay, let's change it into a compound one first. We're going to link two complete sentences with the connective. The original sentence, the ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. We're going to link it to his friend came along to rescue him. So I'm going to put in until. There's our connective. We get rid of the capital H, put in a lowercase, get rid of the full stop as well. So we have a compound sentence. The ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log until his friend came along to rescue him. We've taken two sentences. Here's one, and there's the other. And we've literally stuck them together with glue as if they were bricks. Let's move to one with a clause at the end. We'll return to the original, better sentence with that good vocab. The ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. Here we've added, hoping that someone would come and rescue him. Here's the ing clause, and here's the comma. Now, this is almost like having a whole sentence at the start and adding a clause which is leaning on the sentence. The clause, if it didn't have the sentence to lean on, would fall over and wouldn't make sense by itself. It's leaning on the sentence. It needs that sentence to be able to make sense. Putting a clause at the start. Let's go back to the original improved sentence. The ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. Inserting a clause at the beginning. Let's start with an ing. Feeling extremely vulnerable, there's our comma, the ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. Now moving on to the trickiest one, which is where we plonk a clause in the middle. The original sentence is there in black, the ferocious frog perched precariously on the dilapidated log. But in the middle we've included, or inserted, who suffered from dizziness. Here's the who, because we're talking a human or an animal. Then we've got a comma before and a comma after. If we take that clause out, we return to the original sentence. The ferocious frog who suffered from dizziness perched precariously on the dilapidated log. This clause here is linking together two parts of the sentence. If we take the clause away, we can shove the two parts of the sentence together, but the clause doesn't make sense by itself. So don't forget when you're doing a piece of writing to use a mixture of these types of sentences. Use the short ones to add effect. They focus the reader's attention and make them sit upright and pay attention to what you're writing. The compound ones, those connectives help to explain how, when and why something is happening. And also the complex ones, those clauses add extra information which is incredibly interesting and make sure you're writing more memorable.